Hey gamers, I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and we're back with another Why This Class is Awesome. First, a few things. I want to say I apologize to anyone if you get annoyed about me talking about how many subscribers the channel get or anything like that. It's just really exciting for me to be working on this project and to see it grow, and it's been growing a lot lately. In the last week, we've gotten, like 60 subscribers, really close. Which is nuts. That's a new record on the channel for sure. Also, the monk videos at 1.5k views, which will probably be more by the time that you look at this video, which is even more crazy. I want people to see what it's like when you're going through the beginning parts of starting a channel. When you're seeing the growth, I want people to watch the videos and understand like the process. I'm also just excited to be starting this journey with a lot of you that will, watch the videos and see the channel grow, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. There's no stopping it now. It's growing even faster. Like, I made a guess that by the end of December we'll be at like 500 subscribers. And at the current rate, that's looking incredibly possible. And that means we'll probably hit the 1,000 subscriber mark in March, which would be about 6-ish months from when I started. And it might even happen before that. It's really hard to guess for sure. But, I just wanted to say that I'm very thankful for what you have all done and all the comments, all the subscribing, all the everything, all the interactions have been really good. So I just want to say thank you. And if this does bother you, please let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely try to figure out a different way of doing it. Maybe I'll do it more towards the end, when it's a little less in the way. Enough about all that. Let's go ahead and talk about the class we're talking about today, which is going to be the Summoner. So the Summoner is a very interesting class, and in this video it's going to be very different than usual because the Summoner more is about the eidolon than it is about the actual Summoner. The Summoner does get some interesting feats and some, abilities or whatever, but whatever the Summoner has, the eidolon gets for the most part, besides spells. And even then you can get eidolons with spells. So yeah, I'm not going to be talking much about the actual class abilities, but what I am going to geek about in this video is the actual eidolons themselves. Now, I do want to say as well, these videos are just me talking about why a class is awesome. I mention certain feats and certain abilities that make it so that people get interested in the classes and things I'm genuinely excited about. These are not videos designed to teach people how to play the game. I highly recommend anyone who gets interested to go and check out Pathfinder at Archive of Nethys. They have all the rules there for free, including all the most up-to-date content, and it's provided by Paizo. As well, everyone plays the game differently, and certain mechanics just don't flow in some groups as well as others. So if I get things wrong, I don't mind being corrected on it. But just realize that these videos are not designed to be 100% one-for-one instructions, and I'm going to forget certain traits and what certain things do, because I have to cram a whole video into 20 minutes talking about a class. So let's go ahead and get started with the eidolons. And the first one is going to be the Angel. Now, the Angel, interesting. I actually really like the Angel, mostly for its last couple, evolutions or transcendence abilities or whatever. There's the Traveler's Aura, which I think is absolutely great because it opens up traveling and later in the game traveling to other planes that have very harsh climates. Having an Angel eidolon by default makes it where your game can take place in some of the most inhospitable regions on Galarian or out in the multiverse. It's really good and it's really interesting. And once you hit that level 17, transcendence where you can actually go to other planes without, bursting into flames or suffocating, the Angel's Aura is really good, and it opens up a lot of late game play. Another one of their late game abilities, Angel's Mercy, allows you to pretty much do all the cure type effects once per day, which is really good. And honestly, it just makes the Angel a really solid pick for a late game kind of campaign. We're going to try to get through these a little bit faster, so we're going to talk about the Anger Phantom. It's pretty much just a barbarian. You just have a barbarian as your eidolon. You get a power attack really early, which is really good. If you don't know what power attack is, it just adds extra dice to a strike that takes 2 actions. It's 2 actions. You strike, you throw an extra dice, an extra die of damage, and then as you level up, it gets stronger and stronger. And the benefit to this over just attacking twice with those 2 actions is that it doesn't apply the multi-attack penalty to the extra dice equivalently. So it's really good. It's a really powerful action, and it can open up a lot for your character. And the Anger Phantom just gets it. They just get it without even needing to take a feat. They also get Seething Frenzy, which just makes them rage equivalently. They get 10 HP, do extra damage, their AC goes down. It's really good. I really like the Anger Phantom, and it's just great to have just a monster of an island companion. Beast, surprisingly, is one of the best at like CCing like a large group of enemies, crowd control, or just doing a lot of damage. The Beast Island gets Primal Roar, which is essentially an intimidating glare that affects all enemies within 30 feet of the island. It's really good. It's really great to start a combat off with. And if you focus on intimidation as, like with your skill increases and whatever, it makes your island potentially really good at just nerfing a bunch of enemies into the ground, because fear is a really good stats effect. And then on top of that, they get Whirlwind Maul, which is really easy to hit off on 4 enemies, because you can get so many feats that can make the island bigger, which extends its range even further. And I think there's even a feat that allows you to give your island reach. So Whirlwind Maul is actually a really good way for a 2-action, 4-attack action. It's really good, and you don't even apply the multi-attack penalty until after all the attacks are done, which makes it really good, especially if they do like an intimidation or even a feint on one of the enemies before activating it. It's actually a really solid way to go. The Construct Island, honestly, one of the things I really like about it is it gets Reconfigured Evolution and Ultimate Reconfiguration, which gives it a extra feat of 6th level or lower, and then the latter gives you a feat of 16th level or lower. You just get, not feats, evolution feats specifically. And I just like it. I just like that it gives you extra evolutions. You get free feats from selecting the Construct Island. And not only that, but you can use a crafting check and with a single day of downtime activity to change either of these evolutions, which makes your island really adaptable. You can have the right tools for the right situation, and it's faster than standard retraining. I think the Construct Island's really solid, but you can just have it be literally whatever you want it to be. The Demon Eidolon, it's perfect for evil campaigns, especially because like one of its base things is that it does evil damage on its strikes, which isn't really good because a lot of enemies that players typically fight are evil by nature, but in an evil game that changes things. Though I will say, beyond just that, the Demonic Strikes feature gives you versatile on either your primary or secondary attack, meaning that the Demon Island, if you just craft it right, can have access to all the physical damage types right off the gate. It's really good, and you can have an attack for every situation. On top of that, even though Visions of Sin can be a little bit narratively sketchy, it's a really good feature. One, because it actually works better on evil creatures. They get a -2 status penalty to the check, but also, even if they succeed the check, they can't use reactions. That's a big nerf for certain enemies, especially late game. Like Grave Knights have attack of opportunity. Removing that tool from their kit makes them way less of a threat, on top of any other enemies that have attack of opportunity. The Demon Island is actually surprisingly really good for helping protect your teammates in that respect, which I find very ironic. The Devotion Phantom, it's a pretty standardly good one. The thing I really like about it, though, is Dutiful Retaliation. As long as an enemy is striking your summoner within 15 feet of him, and your eidolon is within 15 feet of you, it doesn't matter if they're on both opposite sides of your summoner character. Your eidolon will be able to make a retaliation attack up to that 30-foot range, which is really good. And for certain kinds of builds, I can really see this as if you're really building your summoner to actually be an active combatant. The Devotion Island makes for a very interesting companion to add to that. Just a very intimidating foe, combining your attacks together, doing a variety of things. I think it's very aesthetic, and it's really cool. Dragon. Now, Dragon gets a breath attack, which is pretty good, but the feature I want to point out is Worm's Breath. It's their Transcendence ability to get at level 17, true, but it doubles the number of damage dice the breath attack does, and doubles the area that it covers. That's just a huge amount of dice. It just does a bunch of damage. It's really cool. The Fae is personally one of my favorites because I think the idea of a caster eidolon is really good. Kind of like the construct eidolon, the Fae eidolon gets 2 features that gives it extra spells or extra evolutions that give it spells. It gets the Fae gifts, which gives it magical understudy, a really good feature that gives it a few primal spells with the addition of any enchantment or illusion spells, I believe. It'll be up here on screen. That it can pick from the arcane spell list as well. It also changes your summoner's spell list, so you can pick from those same extra spells from the arcane spell list, expanding your repertoire. It's really good. And then on top of that Fae Mischief, you get another free evolution that gives you the Magical Adept feature, which also benefits from the additional arcane spells that you can slot into it. They also count as primal spells, but I think it's really good. And as far as casting islands are concerned, the Fae is the best one. The Plant Island I actually really want to mess with because I think it's really interesting. The Plant Island, by its very nature, just gets a very massive reach. One of its first abilities it gets is Tendril Strike. It's an action to essentially extend one of their strikes, or it can do a trip, shove, or disarm maneuver at that extended range. I think that's really interesting. I think that's really cool. And on top of that, Growing Vines, a feature it gets later, gives all of its strikes innately reach, which means that Tendril Strike automatically will boost your reach by 5. As it says, it doesn't even says it gives you reach, it just says extends your reach by 5. If you have a huge eidolon with this feature, there's almost nowhere on a battlefield that an enemy is safe. I think that's really cool, and that's really interesting. The Psychopomp is very interesting. A harbinger of death, something from like limbo area. I forget exactly what it's called. It's a very interesting aesthetic for a island, but they have some features that are very specific and very niche. What I really love about it, though, is they get access to the Hidden Watcher ability, which allows you once per hour to either turn your summoner invisible, your island invisible, or both of you invisible. That's a really good feature, and it essentially gives you a spell slot every hour. That's nuts. That's really good. I really can't say much more about the Psychopomp other than that feature is really good. Now, there's something I want to say about the islands themselves. The islands provide some small benefits, but a lot of what makes your character is the evolutions you select for them. A lot of the feats are going to be evolution based, and so a lot of your character is very much focused on the island. I do want to say, though, Summoner's actually a really solid archetype to pick up for any of your classes that you feel could utilize an extra hand. You don't get the tandem features for it, but being able to like get steed form, for instance, allowing you to ride your eidolon more easily, I think would be really good, especially for the fact that, you know, you can get like flying or swimming or whatever. I just think that the eidolons actually add to a lot of classes, and it's kind of an overlooked archetype. So definitely check that out in your games. But we're going to run through a few feats here real quick before the end of this video, just because I just want to talk about some of the evolutions that they can get, as well as some of the very interesting and cool feats that Summoner gets themselves. One of my favorite feats, though, from the evolution pool, besides the magical ones, because, again, I really want to try that magical style eidolon, is Alacritus Action. Your eidolon gets a plus 10 status bonus, or, I believe, status bonus to its movement speed. That's really good, especially because you're splitting your actions between your eidolon and the summoner themselves. Any boost to movement or any action economy benefits really, really benefits the summoner. Range combatant, I think, is actually a really cool evolution. It gives your eidolon a 1d4 range attack with a 30-foot increment that has the propulsive trait, which I think is really cool. But when you select it, you pick from a list of elemental types, as well as if your eidolon has a innate kind of alignment, like celestial for good or demonic for evil, you can also select those alignment types. I think this is really good. It gives what is normally a more melee based, class, I guess, because the eidolons are all mostly melee based. It gives them a good range option that also increases the damage with, if you have hand wraps of Mighty Blows, it gives them those extra damage dice. I think it's really good, and I think it has a lot of potential to make your eidolon just have more options in combat, and also just some really aesthetic choices that you can make for your character as well. It's a really, really good feat. Bloodletting Claws for all melee-based unarmed strikes that your eidolon does, which is pretty much all of them, even if they have aesthetically a weapon or anything like that. They get a crit effect that makes them do a d6 persistent bleed damage. Any passive crit effects that you can add to your character is always good. Always, always good. Bloodletting Claws is really good. I think it also goes into like Blood Frenzy as a later feat, which is also a good feat, but just this feat alone is really solid, and it will give your eidolon even more of a reason to, get up in combat and face enemies down. It makes them a really good melee combatant, honestly. Ostentatious Arrival. Oh god, this feat is so fun. I really like this one. Essentially what happens is whenever your summoner character, this is not an evolution surprisingly, either manifests their eidolon with a 3-action manifest, it mentioned specifically, or it does a 3-action summoning, spell, they come crashing down, and there's this big emanation, or they just appear, and there's an explosion of fire damage, mostly, unless the summon or eidolon has an elemental trait, in which case it can do that. It also increases the damage. It's a 10-foot emanation from the eidolon, which, by the way, if you have a huge eidolon, actually covers a massive range. But it also upgrades in damage. I do believe, let me double check real quick here. Yep, it does a d4 per spell level, or a d4 for every 2 levels your summoner has when manifesting your eidolon. They're both more or less the same thing. But I think it's really cool. It's really interesting, and it's super aesthetic. It's just you summon something and it explodes. And depending on how you run your summoner, if you run a actual, master summoner build, this stacks really well. Master Summoner allows you to split one of your spell slots to get extra summoning spells, and mixed with this feat, you're doing a lot of summoning, so you're doing a lot of extra damage just with that. Also, it makes it feel like you actually did something on a turn where you have to manifest your eidolon, or where you summon a creature. That doesn't feel like you didn't do anything, you just manifested a creature. I think it's really good, and it feels good mechanically speaking. All right, the last feat I want to talk about today I think is really cool. Again, it really plays to my personal style of the casting style eidolon, but Phase Out, specifically for the phantom type eidolons, allows you to essentially phase your eidolon out. They don't actually become incorporeal, but they get a resistance equal to half of your level to all damage except force and negative damage. The negative damage is really interesting to me. I guess it kind of makes sense because your eidolon still counts as a living creature despite being a phantom. But, force and negative do normal damage. But for all other types of damage, your eidolon gets a resistance. Now, in this form, your eidolon can't make any kind of maneuvers. They can't use their strike actions, but they can still cast spells, and they're not prevented from doing so. This makes a casting style eidolon that focuses more on like the casting stat boosts a really tanky eidolon. Actually, potentially one of the tankiest eidolons in the game, depending on how your stat boosts go. It's really interesting. I think it's a really cool feature, and it makes a very different style of play for your summoner. I think it's really cool and very interesting. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope y'all liked it. Now, if I did get anything wrong, I apologize. You know, it's hard when you're performing to get all the numbers right. And again, as I mentioned earlier, these are not instructional videos. If you want instructional videos, please go to one of the many other Pathfinder channels out there that go into more detail. I'm just here to make people excited for the game. I'm here to talk about some of the really cool things and some of the overlooked features in the game. That's it. That's all I want to do. That's all I'm here for. I'm here for those who just casually want to get into the game and need a reason to get excited for. Which, by the way, please, if you're enjoying these videos, subscribe to see more content like this, and let other people know. Share these videos on other platforms to get other people hyped. I want more people to play Pathfinder. I think Pathfinder is genuinely a really good game. And honestly, if Pathfinder had the support of Wizards of the Coast, like 5th edition D&D does, I think it would be a bigger game than D&D 5th edition. I don't think that will ever happen, but I actually really love this game, and I think more people just need to play it or at least check it out. I think it's a game that has a lot to offer a lot of people, especially with the pure amount of customization from classes like the Summoner. But that's going to be it for me. Good luck with your games. Leave the battle luck to me, and I hope you all have a great time and a happy holiday season as we're coming up on those soon.